let's get down to it. I was going to tell more stories tonight, but over the weekend, oh my God, when you have the brutal and senseless murder of Rob Reiner, and I know that a lot of us disagreed with him politically. A lot of us vehemently disagreed with him politically. Rob Reiner was the first 3-time winner of my Dipshit of the Week award. But I mourn his death. I grew up on All in the Family. I loved A Few Good Men. I loved When Harry Met Sally. The guy was a brilliant, brilliant artist, cinematic artist. And for him to die that way, and for that to be only the number 3 story in a weekend. What is going on in this world? So I'm very pleased to see, except for our president, people who disagreed with Rob Reiner are being very, very classy, unlike how a lot of people were when Charlie Kirk was killed. For the most part, people are being really, really classy about Rob Reiner. And in fact, I don't have it, but there's a clip. You can find it easily enough. Rob Reiner was on Piers Morgan shortly after Charlie Kirk was killed, talking about how, he disagreed with him, but nobody deserves to die for their opinion. Rob Reiner wasn't killed for his opinion. Rob Reiner was killed for something just extremely bizarre that I'm not sure we've gotten to the bottom of. So that was the number 3 story. The number 2 story is the shooting at Brown University, and the killer's still at large. And honestly, I haven't taken too deep a dive into that. I was working on a story about Candace Owens for this week, actually. I was debating whether to have this be another 50 years ago today video. But honestly, 50 years ago today, nothing changed from the last video. I was still sitting in Albany County Jail, despairing about the fact that I was probably never going to get bailed out. So there, I covered 50 years ago today. That was what was going on December 16th, 1975. I was sitting in Albany County Jail, with the food was horrible and fights were breaking out and it smelled and it was not a pleasant place to be. So I was either going to talk about that, but that wouldn't make much of a podcast, or the story about Candace Owens, why she was fired from the Daily Wire came out. Stephen Crowder posted it on Twitter. So I am going to share that later in the podcast. I also want to talk about the connection between Pee Wee Herman and the number 67. You didn't see that coming, did you? So we'll get to that. But first, I have to talk about what happened in Australia over the weekend. And I guess let's start with Tulsi Gabbard. And I have a lot to share on this, so bear with me. And let's start with a quote from Tulsi. Okay, are we seeing this? All right, so Tulsi Gabbard posted on Twitter today, the tragic Islamist terror attack against those at a Hanukkah celebration in Australia sadly should not come as a surprise to anyone. This is the direct result of the massive influx of Islamists to Australia. Now, I'm going to pause there for a moment because the word Islamist sounds so much like Islam or Islamic. I'm going to make that distinction in a moment, so bear with me. But so again, back to what she said. This is the direct result of massive flux of Islamists to Australia. Their goal is not only the Islamization of Australia, but the entire world, including the United States. Islamists and Islamism is the greatest threat to the freedom, security, and prosperity of the United States and the entire world. It is probably too late for Europe and maybe Australia. It is not too late for the United States of America, but it soon will be. So that is Tulsi giving us a very large warning about Islamism. Because here's what happened a few years ago. Tulsi came back from Africa, and she had been on guard duty for months, and they were dealing with the threat of Al-Qaeda in Africa. And when Tulsi came back from Africa after being on active duty for several months, she tweeted basically what she just tweeted today, that Islamism is, for lack of a better word, the greatest threat to words to this effect, that Islamism is a very great threat to Western civilization. So what happened? Mass cancellations. It started with Kim Iverson, and I'm not going to play the video. I just want to show her clickbait headline. So Kim Iverson does a video that's called Tulsi Gabbard's Disappointing Stance on Islamists and Targeted Attacks. And mind you, I was a follower of Kim Iverson. She's a friend of a friend, or was at the time. Then she posts on Twitter, we're talking 3, 4, 5 years ago, that people who supported, like she uses the past tense, people who supported Tulsi Gabbard are now eating crow because Tulsi is clearly some kind of Islamophobic maniac. Words to that effect, not an exact quote. I replied to her, I said, well, if this is what crow tastes like, bring me seconds. I never, ever gave up on Tulsi. But in the aftermath of Kim Iverson doing that, or perhaps simultaneous with it, Fiorella disavowed Tulsi, Pasta disavowed Tulsi, Jimmy Dore disavowed her, Nico House disavowed her, several others. It's en masse. These people all accuse mainstream media of how they think and talk in lockstep, and then in lockstep with each other, they all turn their backs on Tulsi because Tulsi pointed out the Islamist threat. So what is the distinction between Islam and Islamism? Because those two words, they need to come up. And sure, they got the word jihadist. They got the whole intifada thing. So I'm not sure that Islamism is a really good idea to have a pejorative, to express as a pejorative for a philosophy that's a threat to civilization, but it's the word that we're using. So, or the word that they're using. So I actually, just before I went on tonight, I found a video that distinguishes the two. Here we go.
What is the difference between Islamic and Islamist? These two words sound very similar, but there are big differences between them. Islamist is the name for a dystopian ideology which is destructive for everyone, including Muslims. Islamic is an adjective for Muslims. The threat we face is from Islamists and not from Muslims. So when we talk about radicals or a radical ideology, the right term to use is not Islamic, but Islamist. The difference is huge. There's over 1.5 billion Muslims in the world. Targeting all of them as a threat will not only not defeat Islamism, but also help radicalize more people.
Okay, so as my friend Teddy Blecker used to say when I was a teenager, and he and I would engage in long, protracted discussions about this and that, he would always say, define your terms. So hopefully we've defined our terms and distinguished between Islam and Islamism. So the next thing I want to play is an imam denouncing, along the topic of not all Islamic people are Islamists. Let's hear from an imam in his own words.
Today, I speak not only on behalf of the Global Imams Council, but also as an Australian citizen. The Global Imams Council condemns in the strongest, clearest, and most unambiguous terms the barbaric terrorist attack at Bondi Beach in Sydney, Australia, where innocent Jewish families were celebrating Hanukkah, the Festival of Lights. I have just spoken with families of the victims, extending solidarity and unity in the face of an act of terror that has shaken the world. This was not merely an act of violence, it was a calculated anti-Semitic act of terror driven by hatred, cowardice, and moral depravity. The murder of worshippers including children and respected community figures and leaders, is an unforgivable crime that stains the conscience of humanity. These terrorists are enemies of all faiths and of all civilized society. Let us be absolutely clear. The Bondi Beach terrorist attack is what the globalizing of the Intifada looks like when hatred is normalized, when incitement is excused, and when extremists are allowed to fester under the cover of politics, slogans, and cowardly silence. What begins as chants and threats inevitably ends in blood. Any individual or ideology that targets Jews or that justifies violence against them or against our shared Abrahamic family is not representing Islam, but desecrating it. Anti-Semitic terrorism has no legitimacy, no excuse, and no shelter within authentic Islamic leadership. We stand in unbreakable and unapologetic solidarity with the Jewish community of Australia and with Jewish communities worldwide. Your grief is our grief. Your pain is shared deeply by Muslims across the globe who refuse to remain silent in the face of evil. The light of Hanukkah, a symbol of resilience and faith in the face of darkness, will never be extinguished by those who worship hatred and death.
So that was important. That was important because let's not go around hating on all Muslims. I only have a few words to say about what happened on Sunday. 15 people were killed. 10-year-old girl. I have a 10-year-old granddaughter. That hits me hard. I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine. And an 87-year-old man who survived the Holocaust. This guy survived Hitler. He survived Hitler. And he didn't survive Bondi Beach, where people were just trying to celebrate Hanukkah. This has nothing to do with Zionism. This has nothing to do with Israel. This was purely an attack on people because they're Jewish. I grew up with this, but people weren't killed in my neighborhood. They were just beaten up, which is not exactly a picnic either. And the question always remains, when does it stop? How does it stop? Where does it stop? So I'm going to share another video, and this is from a rabbi, and here we go.
Son-in-law, Rabbi Eli. And now on the first day of Hanukkah, Rabbi Eli has passed away, has been killed, has been slaughtered, has been murdered. By who? By jihadist Muslims. What the Imam just did is most notable and should be saluted. The Imam said the words that needs to be repeated by every Imam. It can't just be one voice. It has to be a universal voice. People always question, why is there Islamophobia? What's the difference between anti-Semitism and Islamophobia? Anti-Semitism is baseless hatred. I hate a Jew. I don't know why. I'm just told I'm supposed to hate them. There is no factional reason why to hate a Jew. A Jewish person is a person who lives by the book. God gave them a mandate to be a light unto the nations. And everything we have done in 3,337 years is to promote life, love, happiness, prosperity, to do whatever we can to help humanity. Islamophobia is a genuine phobia based on facts. Look at the last 77 years. Look at who has been terrorizing the world, who has terrorized Israel for 77 years, who is hijacking planes, who is tearing down Twin Towers and killing 4,000 innocent civilians in the heart of New York City. Who is Hamas? Who is Houthi? Who is Hezbollah? Who is Iran? Go down the list of ISIS, Al-Qaeda. These who call themselves adherents to the Muslim law, is this what your religion teaches and promotes death, carnage? This Imam, may God bless his soul, needs to spread his word. He needs to enlist his fellow colleagues. This has to be one voice, one opinion from all the clerics internationally condemning this terrible terrorist attack.
Let me get one more point of view on all this, and then I'll give my own blather on the topic.
As of now, we know there were one or two Israelis. One was murdered, one was injured, and the rest are Australian Jews. Australian. And they weren't protected by the police. They're not protected by the government. They weren't protected by security for 20 minutes. For 20 minutes, they were shot at. I cannot wrap my head around that. That would have never happened in any other normal society. And the crazy thing about it is that there were policemen there. And I'm willing to bet those policemen were afraid to respond because they didn't want to get caught on the wrong side of the political divide. How unbelievably pathetic is that? So children were murdered, elderly were murdered, fathers were murdered, and people were injured and scarred for a lifetime because of cowardice. Cowardice enables this. Cowardice allows this to happen. And enough is enough. It is time for the pushback. It is time to push back.
Well, I'm not sure what pushing back really looks like, but we can't just sit here and be killed. We're and then of course my fellow. I guess I think I've been kicked out of the left, so I'm not sure I could say my fellow leftists anymore. But now the inevitable cries for gun control come out in the wake of Australia's horrible mass shooting this past Sunday. Fact of the matter is, if there wasn't gun control in Australia, fewer people probably would have died because somebody would have taken out the gunman. And one amazing hero got behind one of the gunmen and disarmed him, pointed the gun at him. I'm not sure why he didn't shoot. Maybe the guy didn't know how to handle a firearm. He sure knew how to point it. And of these two people, it was a father and a son. For this guy, I say may he rest in peace, but really may he burn in hell. He's not exactly father of the year. This is how you raise your kid. The son was captured, and I don't know what he knows. I don't know who he's affiliated with, but capturing one of these alive, because these people are almost always killed in the process of, either they blow themselves up or they're taken out. This guy was actually captured. And this is not the United States. This is not Guantanamo. What I'm saying is, and I know it's not my higher self talking, but whatever it takes to find out what he knows, I'm all for. I have absolutely no compassion for this person. And I use the word person very lightly. He went there. It's just innocent people, an 87-year-old man, a 10-year-old girl, and everybody in between. It's insane. It's insane. That's the thing. Even if you go all the way to the other side and say Israel is an apartheid state, Israel has been abusing the Gazans, settlers in the West Bank and doing horrible things. If you buy into every bit of propaganda, and it is propaganda spread by people like Kim Iverson, by the way, who was a lot invested in this because she went to Judea and Samaria and did a documentary about it. It was kind of gut wrenching and heart wrenching, but it was all one sided. So she's invested in this. I never thought I would see the day when I would unsubscribe to Jimmy Dore. For 7 years, he was my go-to podcast. But, I might as well use him for the segue I'm about to do. So I'm not going to give him a click. But look at the title of this video. Erica Kirk panics, flies to Nashville for meeting with Candace Owen. So predictably, and I know I'm kind of telling the story backwards here because I'm segueing into this whole Candace Owens mess with Erica Kirk and everything else involving Candace Owens. Predictably, Jimmy Dore is taking the Candace Owens side of this. So let me get back to me. There I am. After the death of Charlie Kirk, after the murder, the assassination of Charlie Kirk, Candace Owens, who was already unhinged, had already been fired by the Daily Wire back in March. And I'm going to actually play a video that explains exactly why she was fired. She went on an unhinged rant. First, she was tweeting proof that the Jews were responsible for the death of Charlie Kirk. Now, mind you, they have a person in custody who etched messages on bullets, confessed to 3 different people, was turned in by his parents, DNA on the murder weapon. I mean, it can't be more open and shut, but then again, there was OJ, so who knows? But she started blaming the Jews. You know, then she blamed France. Then there was something about Egypt. And then she turned her attention to Turning Point USA and started badmouthing Erica Kirk, this strong, beautiful has nothing to do with it. I mean, beautiful soul woman who, in her grief, just losing the love of her life and the father of her young children, stepped up to try to keep Charlie's message going. And I'm not saying I agreed with everything Charlie said. I sure as hell agreed with a lot of it. But even if I didn't agree, I mean, you know, what happened to him was awful. And for Candace Owens, who already is making millions off of YouTube and has over 1 million followers, if I'm not mistaken, for her to try to cash in on the death of Charlie Kirk, not just cash in on his death, but using his widow as a springboard to cashing in, that is vile, that is foul, and shame on you, Jimmy Dore, shame on you. Absolutely. You know what? I should have had it prepared. I've got a few selfies of me and Jimmy. I was going to erase them publicly. I might actually do it at the end of the video because I'm going to play some things. I'll have a little time to look things up. Shame on Jimmy Dore and whoever else is taking the part of Candace Owens. This is the Nick Fuentes crowd. This is, oh man, I posted a clip of me talking about Nick Fuentes because somebody. And again, I don't know why. I've asked him a couple of times. Somebody sent me a Nick Fuentes video knowing how I feel about the situation, you know, about the world, you know, not something I would abide. I've asked him twice why he sent it. I just get cricket. And then I took a 46-second clip of why would he send me a Fuentes video. And the Groypers found it. Whoa, the Groypers found it. It got 1 like and 26 dislikes. And by the way, the 1 like was me. And the comments were hateful, anti-Semitic, horror. They even taught, what is that anything wrong with my nose? I mean, yeah, I had cancer surgery, but I don't think it was visible in the video. You know, they talk, look at the schnoz on that guy. You're a Jew. So I know that, you know, the hive mind can get active sometimes, but man, I experienced the Fuentes hive mind. Unbelievable. 26 dislikes and 1 like, and the 1 like was me. I should erase my like so I could be at 0% likes. I think right now I'm at 3.8%, something like that. About that, I do want to just show one little headline. Just, you know, again, while we're on the subject of Tulsi Gabbard, and that is just that U.S. response to Bangladesh over Tulsi Gabbard's Islamist caliphate remark. We condemn intolerance, and she went on to kind of blame Islamism for the horrors happening in Bangladesh. Which, by the way, Safula and company, I have not forgotten about you. I appreciate all the support and the swelling of my subscriber base as a result of my covering of Bangladesh. I still want to do that all the time. I'd like to get an update on what's happening there. But there you had Tulsi Gabbard, you know, again, being very consistent in her approach to the world, because that's what's happening now in Bangladesh. Hindus are being slaughtered because by Islamists for the crime of not being Muslim. That imam would condemn that. And that imam needs to keep on condemning it and recruit his brother, just like the rabbi said in that video. That's the only way that we lose this. That's the only way we win this. I mean, if there's even any winning. You know, World War II happened and people charged over borders and got pushed back, and Germany invaded Russia, and Germany invaded France, and D-Day happened, and Stalingrad happened, and I got pushed back, and you know the evil that was Nazism was confined to the country of Germany for the most part. Sure, you had Nazi supporters all over the world, but to stamp out Nazism, you knew where to go. You know, you had to kill Hitler and do whatever it took to get to him. This is different. This is different. These jihadists are everywhere. Globalize the Intifada. You know, I hear these words coming out of people, and you have a guy on January 1st at 12:01 a.m., the mayor of New York City is going to be a man who refused to condemn globalize the Intifada. And we saw on Sunday what they mean by globalize the Intifada. It's horrible. So back to Candace. Back to Candace. And mind you, I used to follow her. I loved when she had her feud with Cardi B, and Candace wiped the floor with Cardi B. I was loving her back then. You know, she was so good that she ended up being part of the Daily Wire, which to me is one of the better. Sure, they're very opinionated. They're extremely, they're definitely right leaning, not far right leaning. They're moderate right leaning. Let me just peek at what else I have left if there's anything I haven't covered yet. In case you can't see the whole thing, this is a photo I took of my TV set. Safety tips for Hanukkah celebrations. Be in groups. Be aware of your surroundings. Look for the exits. Report any suspicious packages or behavior or unfamiliar vehicles. Trust your instincts. That comes from the LA County Sheriff's Department. This is America in 2025. And I'm seeing that on my TV screen? What is going on? What is going on in this world? So, why was Candace Owens fired from the Daily Wire? And the prevailing theory for a long time was that Ben Shapiro fired her for her anti-Semitic comments. And that's only half true. She was, well, rather than describe what went on, this is an 18-minute video that I'm going to play in its entirety. And I'm not going to interrupt it. I'm going to full screen it, get it back to and play this without interruption, unless somebody comments, in which case I'll.
15 minutes ago, the Daily Wire terminated its relationship with Candace Owens. Candace has been an incredibly powerful voice for conservatives for years. Unfortunately, it's become more and more clear, and it's now unavoidably so, that Candace has moved in a direction that the Daily Wire simply cannot and will not support. Candace's shift has done enormous damage to our brand, damage that we've decided we just can't allow to continue. Mostly, but by no means all of this tarnishment to our brand stems from Candace's flirting with, winking at, and even directly engaging in content widely viewed as anti-Semitic, and from associating herself with well-known anti-Semites. The Daily Wire, contrary to public opinion, is not owned by Jews. In fact, the majority of it is owned by Christians, myself included. And we know that anti-Semitism as a charge is, like the charge of racism, often made far too lightly by those who profiteer from such accusations, groups like the ADL or BLM. But that doesn't mean that racism and anti-Semitism don't exist. They obviously do, and they just as obviously have no place in our national discourse. Candace refusing to condemn Kanye West, for example, is not anti-Semitism. I said as much at the time, and I even encouraged Candace not to disinvite Ye from her Greatest Lie Ever Sold premiere after his "I'm going DEFCON 3 on Jewish people" tweet a year and a half ago. I thought at that time that one remark, even a remark as plainly anti-Semitic and asinine as that, wasn't proof that Kanye himself was necessarily an anti-Semite. People say and do all kinds of dumb things, all the time, and I didn't think that Candace should necessarily distance herself from her friend at that moment. Did I find it troubling that Candace continued to stand by Ye as the weeks went on and he continued what became maybe the biggest anti-Semitic meltdown in American public life? A meltdown by the end of which he had praised Hitler, announced a run for the presidency, and hired the most prominent apologist for anti-Semitism in the country, Nick Fuentes? Yes, I did. And I argued pretty passionately with Candace about that point at the time. But I still didn't think that her behavior rose to the point of parting ways. Fast forward a little more than a year later, however, and there's a lot more cause for concern. Here are just a few examples from just the last few weeks. Candace appeared on the Fresh and Fit podcast, which itself skews anti-Semitism and talks about the JQ, which means the Jewish question, routinely. And Candace said nothing while the host played a cha-ching cash register sound at the mention of any Jew or Israel, including Ben Shapiro's wife. We have a clip here of that for you.
He is very passionate about Israel. He's married to an Israeli. I mean, that makes sense, I guess. Yeah. You know?
Imagine Ben Shapiro sitting on a podcast that was known for spewing hate toward Black people, and then sitting idly by while the host made jokes, racist jokes about Candace's family. You can't imagine it because it's unimaginable. It would just never happen. Only a few weeks before that, Candace lamented, quote, DC Jews, who she says are Marxists and monsters, and who, quote, want nothing more than political power and need to be weeded out. Then just last week, Candace liked a post on X from an account called Christ Gnosis, asking if a well-known rabbi is, quote, drunk on Christian blood again. Now, if you aren't aware, the idea that rabbis and Jews more broadly drink the blood of Christians is one of the oldest expressions of anti-Semitism. It even has its own name. It's called the blood libel, and it's been used to pit Christians against Jews since the Middle Ages. The blood libel has been used all throughout history to incite the hatred and murder of Jews. I don't claim to know what's in Candace's heart. What I know, as I've said, is that she has been flirting with, winking at, and even directly engaging in content that's widely viewed to be anti-Semitic, and even worse, known and unabashed anti-Semites seem to have taken a real liking to her. They routinely celebrate her, invite her on their podcasts, like her X posts, and retweet them, and she frequently reciprocates. Candace has made something of a sport in these last months out of strongly implying negative things about Jews, only to then deny that she was ever actually talking about the Jews in the first place. Candace made no statement at all in the days after Hamas terrorists raped, murdered, and tortured over 1,000 Israeli civilians, mostly Jews, some Americans. And then they took hundreds more hostage. But then on October 28th of 2023, while anti-Israel protests were raging in London, where Candace, I believe, was at the time, she reposted a video of the protests on X, commenting, quote, interesting thing happening here. People are not accepting the media narrative about what's happening in the Middle East, despite the insistent rhetoric from government officials. On November 3rd, she posted, quote, no government anywhere has a right to commit a genocide ever. There is no justification for a genocide. I can't believe this even needs to be said or is even considered the least bit controversial to state. There was only one country on earth being accused of genocide at the time. Anti-Semites on X took to it immediately. They cheered at what they rightly or wrongly interpreted as Candace smearing Israel. And Candace didn't rebuff their interpretation. But when Dave Rubin came to the exact same conclusion as the anti-Semites, only instead of cheering for Candace, found it vile and rebuked her, Candace quickly attacked, saying, quote, what's amazing about this is that I didn't name any country in this tweet. I simply stated that genocide is wrong always. This is not a controversial stance. Interesting how you interpreted it. And then followed up with, quote, in short, if the blanket statement that genocide is wrong upsets you in any way, then you need to check yourself. I said exactly what I meant, and I won't be backing down or apologizing or further clarifying this statement. Within 24 hours, Candace liked a post calling Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu a war criminal. Now let's be clear. You're free to disagree with Israel's conduct, and you're free to oppose the Netanyahu government. But the idea that Israel is committing genocide or that Netanyahu is a war criminal is just factually baseless. Unfortunately, Candace routinely makes insinuations about Jews that both lovers of anti-Semitism and haters of anti-Semitism both agree is anti-Semitic. And in almost every one of these instances, Candace says nothing to the anti-Semites who cheer her and only pushes back against those who disapprove of her comments. On February 28th of this year, Candace just asking questions, posted, quote, "Time to look into the history and profiteering of pornography." Her replies were immediately flooded with anti-Semites cheering her for the question and providing the answer that they interpreted her to mean, the Jews. Once again, Candace did nothing to disabuse the anti-Semites of their assumption. But when Anthony Koch came to the exact same conclusion, Candace pushed back saying, quote, "This is utterly insane. I tweeted that porn is harming men in our society, and this person has interpreted that as an attack on Jews. This is an example of clinical insanity. There is no other explanation." But of course, there are other possible explanations. There are other numerous examples just like this, when the anti-Semites and anti-anti-Semites all agree that what you're saying is anti-Semitic. Perhaps, as a very well-paid professional and expert communicator, you might consider communicating more clearly. Candace hasn't. She's only doubled down. In the last few weeks, she stated or implied that DC Jews control American politics, that Hollywood Jews force certain Black artists to create violent and filthy music, that a Jewish gang robbed and killed Michael Jackson, that a Jew killed Lee Harvey Oswald to keep us from finding out that the CIA killed JFK. All this while elevating Osama bin Laden and Muammar Gaddafi and defending Hitler's book burning and apologizing to Muslims on behalf of America for what she calls the brainwashing of Americans after 9/11 and alleged American war crimes overseas. None of which proves that Candace is an anti-Semite. I don't claim to know what Candace actually believes. When I've asked her directly what she believes, she's told me, quote, "I believe what the people believe. I am the voice of the people." Never mind that subordinating your beliefs to the people is both pandering and immoral. It's also vague. Who are the people? And what is it that they believe? Based on her content of late, I can't think that she means Americans broadly or even conservatives broadly. It seems far more likely to me that the people Candace is the voice of are the very people celebrating what she's saying. Here's one of the most prominent anti-Semites in the country giving his perspective on the answer to that question.
I have to stand. I have to stand because she's cooking. She cooked. That's crazy. She tweets a picture of Rabbi Shmuley. Bill, she writes. Bill. Nothing else. Incredible. She writes, Bill. She called him an unholy rabbi. I'm stealing that, by the way. If you hear that in my AFPAC 4 speech, I'm giving her credit. I'm stealing that from her. She said, the unholy rabbi. Dude, goated with the sauce, f***ing cook.
Fuentes went on for about an hour celebrating Candace in that episode from 2 weeks ago. Of course, it's not just her associations with anti-Semitism that are damaging to our brand. Over the last few months, Candace has embraced the worst conspiracy theories and the worst people. When she traveled to Romania to interview Andrew Tate, Caleb was clear that we wouldn't pay for her to rehabilitate a pornographer, con man, and an accused rapist. Candace assured him that hers would not be a softball interview. But of course it was. Candace not only allowed Andrew Tate to misrepresent his past statements and the charges against him, she helped him do so. Last week, Candace put out a long tweet trying to frame her position not as supporting the Tate brothers, but simply as being fair-minded about the charges brought against them. That might have been more convincing if she had ever said a single negative thing about them, or if she hadn't liked, responded to, or retweeted them 73 times in the months since the interview. I want to be clear about this. Andrew and Tristan Tate are very bad men who have boasted and even sold courses teaching how to manipulate women through sex into doing pornography for your profit. And again, Candace is a professional communicator. She's very effective at saying what she wants to say, probably as effective at that as anyone alive. And of course, Candace has recently said that she's willing to stake her entire professional reputation on the fact that French President Macron's wife was born a man, despite the claims already having been proven false in French courts. The lady has 3 children. She and her brother, whom the conspiracy theorists suggest is actually her, jointly sued and won against the people who first popularized the conspiracy theory in France. But most troubling to me is Candace's deeply disingenuous use of the term Christ is King. As best I can tell, her first use of this term publicly was in response to Ben. If you recall, Ben was asked at a small private event in a Jewish home how he felt about Candace's behavior post-October 7th. Ben was caught on camera saying that he found her behavior disgraceful and disreputable. That day, Candace posted a verse from the New Testament that man cannot serve both God and money, with a follow-up comment of Christ is King. The remark was widely interpreted as a rebuke of Ben and to mean that Candace could not be bought off by Jewish Ben Shapiro. She and her opinions are in service to God. Ben responded in anger. He said that if Candace believed her contract with the Daily Wire was standing between her and God, she could quit. Candace's response was classic Candace. After saying but not saying exactly what she meant and then being called out on it, she denied that she ever meant it in the first place, and how dare you suggest that she did. She said, quote, "You've been acting unprofessional and emotionally unhinged for weeks now, and we've all had to sit back and allow it, and have all tried to exercise exceeding understanding for your raw emotion. But you cross a certain line when you come for scripture and read yourself into it. I will not tolerate it." She posted again, quote, "You are utterly out of line for suggesting that I cannot quote biblical scripture. The Bible is not about you." Then commented on that post, again, "Christ is King." Here's the thing. I agree that Christ is King. All Christians agree that Christ is King. But why say so here? What's the implication, if not that Candace serves Christ and Ben doesn't? It certainly appears to me that Candace is attacking Ben for the very fact of his Jewishness. In fact, anti-Semites love to bandy about the term Christ is King. Here's our pal Nick Fuentes again.
That's what it's all about. When I come out to these rallies and I see everybody and they bring their rosaries and crucifixes and their American flags, I know we're on the right side of history.
It's probably worth remembering here that Fuentes, when he isn't praising our Lord, has called for a holy war against Jews and said that, quote, "We will make them die in the holy war. They have no future in America. They will go down with their satanic master." Christ is King. Yeah, Christ is King. But the term Christ is King is not a gang affiliation. Christ isn't glorified by your using him as a weapon to cudgel your enemies. And to anyone who would say it's never wrong to say that Christ is King, please tell me what then is meant by the third commandment: "Thou shalt not carry forth the name of the Lord thy God in vain." Surely if one were to rape and murder someone, like Hamas did on October 7th, but all the while shouted to the dying person that Christ is King, we would all agree that 3 horrible crimes were committed. Rape, yes. Murder, yes. But also the crime of implementing God in the first 2 crimes. That's carrying forth the name of the Lord in vain. That's what anti-Semites are doing when they say Christ is King. Christ is King, sure enough. And he recommends himself in our struggles, not us in our petty, nudge, nudge, wink, wink anti-Semitism. All of this has badly tarnished the brand and reputation of the Daily Wire and of me personally as the front-facing CEO. One need only revisit the thousands of virulently and overtly hateful commenters celebrating what they see as Candace's turn against the Jews, the remarks from Nick Fuentes, the myriad stories written in journals from Mediaite to the Washington Examiner to the Jewish Journal to the Times of Israel, the New York Post, the Daily Mail, and on, or from the many, many people disappointed with the Daily Wire and with me and even with Ben for not acting sooner to see how badly marred our reputation has become. And so we're ending our relationship with Candace effective immediately. We're not canceling Candace, as in cancel culture. Candace has every right as an American to damage her own brand. If I were the CEO of a platform like X, I wouldn't kick Candace off of it. But I'm not the CEO of a platform like X. I'm the CEO of the Daily Wire. The Daily Wire is not a platform. The Daily Wire is a publisher. Daily Wire is not a place where people publish their own thoughts. It's a place where we curate the thoughts that we largely align with and voices we believe are doing good in the world, not just thoughts and voices who happen to agree with Jeremy or happen to agree with Ben all the time. Obviously, I disagree with all of our hosts some of the time. But Candace has now become a voice I simply cannot align with. I believe that she's doing great harm in the world and to the brand that I've worked really hard to build over this last decade, and I'm just no longer willing to subsidize it. And I want to be clear about one more thing. We're not giving in to any pressure from any outside group. Rabbi Shmuley, who Candace has called unholy and accused of blackmailing her, is, as far as I can tell, an abject attention whore. I don't much care what he thinks. I don't much care what kinds of threats that he makes. He's continued to demand that Ben and Dennis Prager fire Candace, but of course, as both Ben and Candace and I have said publicly again and again, Ben doesn't have the authority to fire Candace because he's not a majority owner of the business and he's not an executive in the company. But he's famous and he's Jewish, so Rabbi Shmuley is happy to grandstand by demanding that he do so anyway. As for Dennis Prager, Candace hasn't worked for PragerU in 3 years, and as far as I know, Dennis isn't an executive at PragerU any more than Ben is an executive at the Daily Wire. But again, famous, Jewish, and so Rabbi Shmuley is happy to grandstand. Charlie Kirk, by contrast, who runs TPUSA, where Candace does currently give speeches and make a nice living. Shmuley hasn't said anything about him. Charlie's famous, but he isn't Jewish. That's the kind of guy Rabbi Shmuley is, and the reason that we would never give in to any kind of pressure from a man like him. This decision has nothing to do with Shmuley or any other Jewish pressure coming to bear. This is about the very Christian CEOs of the Daily Wire finally seeing what we were both loath to see before, what I was loath to see before, that Candace is not on our team. She's not pursuing the future that we're pursuing. She's not appealing to the audience we're appealing to. She does not hold the values that we hold to. I gave her every benefit of the doubt. I gave her far more benefit of the doubt than I should have, and I'm done. Candace has violated the terms of her contract in myriad ways. She has a contractual obligation not to tarnish our brand, but she has. She has a contractual obligation not to do anything that a reasonable person might construe as anti-Semitic or to align her brand with anti-Semites, but she has. And by the way, it was her attorney who suggested that we put that clause in her contract in the first place after the Kanye mess. It wasn't our idea. For all of those reasons and for many more, we're enforcing our rights under the contract to terminate. Now, I know that this will cause a lot of confusion and harm and pain for a lot of you in this room, especially for those of you who've worked really hard on Candace's content, or for those of you who, like me, have only ever seen her as one of the most talented and important voices in the country. And I'm sorry for that. I hope that we live to see Candace come back from this dark path that she's taken. Again, I see her as one of the most talented people in the country, and when she uses those talents in service of the good and the true and the beautiful, I don't believe that there is anyone better, maybe in all of the world, than she. That's not what she's doing today. I hope that she does it again. She won't be doing it at the Daily Wire.
That was Jeremy Boring, not being very, very much not boring. He was the CEO of the Daily Wire back in March, and that speech was given 15 minutes after he fired Candace Owens. He had to be prepared for it. I mean, that was extremely articulate. He really went into detail. And so last thought about Candace Owens. Today, or actually, I'm sorry, yesterday, she met with Erica Kirk. Erica Kirk tweeted, Candace Owens and I are meeting for a private in-person discussion on Monday, December 15th. That's yesterday for the calendar challenged. Candace and I have agreed that public discussions, live streams, and tweets are on hold until after this meeting. I look forward to a productive conversation. Thank you. That is Erica Kirk being her classy self. And I couldn't help commenting. And I said, this is Michael Ungerleider, aka the Blathering Boomer. Have a great, productive, and logical discussion. Speak truthfully and listen with an open heart. Keep your balance and make your point thoughtfully. Put your best foot forward and kick her in the nuts. So that was my 2 cents worth for Erica Kirk. Yeah, I agree, Kay. Too much weird drama. It really is. This is, I'm not a journalist, you know. I just watch things that I see, and I have a lot of people in my life who don't pay any attention whatsoever. So I try to share things and put my own spin on it. I want to get back to my prison stories, which I will. My next podcast won't be until January 8th, I think. Let's end this with something much lighter. Something much lighter, because well, I'm not gonna really show my age, but maybe sort of, because you know my son was the age for watching this show when he was a little kid, and I want to share a little snippet from that and relate it to what's actually going on in the world these days.
Morning, Bondi. Hey, what's today's secret word? Today's secret word is fun. Now you all remember what to do whenever anyone says the secret word, right?
That is so correct. For the rest of the day, whenever anybody says a secret word, scream really loud.
Ready? Let's try it.
Hey, Cherry, how's it going?
I'm having fun!
You look like you're having fun. Great work, everybody. Really fun.
Okay, so that was Pee-wee's Playhouse. My son was 2 years old. We used to watch that together, and he loved that secret word. So there's a new secret word. There's a new secret word, but it goes way beyond Pee-wee. Apparently, 67 is the secret word of the century. And when anybody says 67, people go nuts. I guess it's happening in schools. It's this alpha generation thing. I don't know. I only heard about it. I kind of stumbled across it the other day. But let me tell you how real it is. It is so real. How real is it? It's so real that 67, the number 67, has been removed. You ever go to In-N-Out Burger? Those of you who don't live in California might not know about In-N-Out Burger. It's always crowded. When you go to In-N-Out Burger and you place your order, they give you an order number, and when they call your number, you go up and you retrieve your order. So because of what's happening with the number 67 being the new Pee Wee Herman-esque secret word, we, is it on my screen, have this.
Talk about being in and out of favor. The fast food chain has kicked 67 out of its order system.
According to People magazine, what happened was they removed the number from its order tickets because of the viral 6-7 trend. The company says, well, here's what happened. Teens would wait around just to hear 67 called, and then they jump into unruly 6-7 celebrations, pretty much ruining it for everyone in the restaurant. Employees confirm it's been gone for about a month. So what happens is orders are called. The order system jumps straight from 66 to 68, like 6-7 never existed. So there's that. I agree with you, Kate, by the way, about this journalist cover the next episode of Days of Our Lives. This is a soap opera. It's pretty absurd, but it's also, I can't help feeling outrage at Candace. Then again, I used to feel outrage at Waldo Von Erich when I watched wrestling. I used to feel outrage at Roddy Piper and think Hulk Hogan was a hero. So, maybe that's all this is. Maybe because there's a lot of parallels with all the political stuff in professional wrestling. You got the good guys, you got the bad guys. The bad guys cheat and play dirty. The good guys play clean and usually pay the price for it. Anyway, it is a big soap opera, and it's being covered like crazy. I said that the murder of Rob Reiner was the number 3 story. Maybe it's actually the number 4 story, because they were prattling on about this all weekend, about the upcoming meeting with Erica Kirk and Candace Owens. But I have nothing but respect for Erica Kirk, and I used to have nothing but respect for Candace Owens. Like I said, I want to get back to my story. 50 years ago today, nothing eventful was happening. If you watched any of the videos, any of my last 2 podcasts, the December 4th one, which is the day I got arrested, and the how Maria Muldaur helped me escape police custody, which I highly recommend, by the way. I think it might be my best video. I read one of my written stories on it. I kind of like it, not to toot my own horn or blather my own blather. I was being held on $50,000 bail at my bail reduction hearing, where I put all my hope. They didn't reduce my bail. I was still held at $50,000 bail. Again, $50,000 in 1975 is like $300,000 now. My parents didn't own a house. I can't say enough about how grateful I am that my parents stuck with me when I got busted when I was 21 years old. I didn't deserve it. I had gone against everything I was raised to be. You know, I was doing a lot of drugs. I was selling a lot of drugs. I was gambling out of control, and I was on a path to either death or, when I finally would get busted, probably something much, much worse would have happened. So I'm grateful for my entire life, including the time I spent in prison. And again, as time goes by, I'll be talking about that more and more. So I guess I'm in the blah, blah, blah stage of the blather. So rather than blah, 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 all of us into oblivion, I will simply say the magic words, which we all know are: the boomer has blathered. Thank you so much for watching. Those of you who brave souls who watched live, and those of you who, and by the way, Kameshwari, formerly Kate, now 108, soon to be Kate again. I do want to cover Stanley Park. I want an update on what's happening in Stanley Park. So I know it's a topic near and dear to your husband's heart and your heart. So hit me up, UNG714 on Twitter, Ugly Nasty Guy 714 on Twitter. And we got a response from Kameshwari. Go on a 12-day. Oh, really? Okay. Go on a 12-day silent retreat, then return to your own stuff and observations of a manufacturer. You were just on a 12-day silent retreat. You know, my partner, Stephanie, does those. I can't stay quiet for 12 minutes. I can't imagine 12 days. And then you got to return to hear all that. Well, I'm sorry about that, and I'm sorry to add to it, but I can't help it. I can't help it. It's too interesting. And all the stuff that guy said, that, you know, in firing Candace Owens, I mean, he really laid it out. So my apologies to those who are bored by it. And anyway, I already said the boomer is blathered, so I'm going to say one more time that the boomer has blathered. Thank you again very much for watching.